Okay, so now we're going to do the clean and adjust for the rear brakes. So we're going to start by cleaning the brake drum assembly and also cleaning all the brake components. So we brought our brake parts washer over here, and I put the brake parts washer underneath our brake assembly here so that all that brake parts washer fluid can drain back into the pan. So what we're going to do, we'll turn it on. Now you can see we have brake parts washer, and I'm gonna wash it all down. So I soak everything first. It's okay to soak the shoes with the parts washer because it will not damage the shoe material. Okay. So once you got a pretty good soaking of everything, now you can use the brush part. And what we're going to do is we're going to wash all that brake dust and crap off of the assembly. So I'll make sure I get the backing plate, I'll get inside the shoes, along the springs. So make sure I get that wheel cylinder real good. Down here at the star adjuster, I want to make sure I get the star adjuster real good because they're threaded, and I want to make sure that I keep all those threads nice and clean. Okay, so once I got all these springs and brake table, wheel cylinder all looking good, then I'll move to the outside and I'll get the shoe material as well as behind in that little backing plate part back there. So I want to make sure that this is nice and clean. I get inside the rivets. Okay. So once we got all that done, we are finished with cleaning. And turn off my machine. And then I'm just going to let it all drain and dry before I put the drum assembly back on. Okay, so after we have washed all the brake components down, we need to go ahead and re-lube the backing plate where the shoe just touches the backing plate because it's going to have vibration back there, and I want to put some lube in between the two so that I don't get any noise. And the best way to do that is to take a screwdriver, like so, and then I'll come behind here, and basically I'm just going to take that shoe and I'm going to tilt it out. And you can see that I have a point here that I'm going to lube. So I'll stick some lube in there, like so. You'll see down here at the bottom, I have another spot. So I want to lube it there. And then usually you'll have another one at about the middle, right about where this bend is here on the inside. So I'm going to get that spot as well. And I'll lube it pretty graciously, give it something to on. I'll do the same thing to the other side. Get a little bit more grease. So I'll pull this side out. And yeah, get in there. I'll do the bottom here, right there, and then the mid part, right there. Okay. So now that backing plate has been lubed so that when the shoe touches it and it vibrates around or moves around, it's not going to make any noise, and it'll be able to shift around pretty easily. When we go to put the drum on, the drum has to be, it's going to be a little larger than where the shoes are. So we're going to have to bring these shoes out to the drum. And that's accomplished by this star adjuster here. So as I turn that, it starts pushing those shoes out. It's self-adjusting. This arm right here is connected to the emergency brake. So when you pull the emergency brake, this is going to get pushed down and that's going to actually cause it to go to the next position. So you see when that gets pushed down, you can see that it's pushing that star adjuster. Okay. So we'll go ahead and I'll get the drum and we'll slide it on and we'll do that adjustment. Okay, so before I put the drum on, I want to get the shoes adjusted to about the diameter of this drum. And in order to figure that out before I put the drum on, I'm going to use this tool. So you can see one side is pointed and one side has flat sides. The side with the pointed is where we're going to start. I'm going to put that in, run it across the diameter of my drum, lock it into place, and now I have a measurement of how big my drum is in diameter. On this side, it correlates to how big the shoes should be expanded out. So I'll take this, walk over to this side, and now I can see how much I need to come out. So you can see I have maybe a little more than 1/8 of an inch to come out. So what I'll do is I'll adjust my shoes until it touches. Like so. So you can see it just barely touches these end pieces. So this shoe is out far enough. So now I can take my drum and I can set it back on the assembly, like so. Now that I got that on there, I run my bearing inside, like so. And now, after my bearing is done and put inside, I can take my nut, start my nut on there. We're going to bring this all the way on, as tight as I can by hand. Once I got as tight as I can by hand, now I can go get the hammer and I'll go ahead and drive it on. Okay, so now I'm going to walk this nut on and I'm going to use my hammer. Remember, I don't have the special tool, the special socket that goes inside. So this is my alternative way. Okay, so I'm going to drive it all the way on and get it pretty tight because I need to set that bearing first. So if you remember, the Truck Maintenance Council wants you to tighten it up to 250 foot-pounds and then back it back off. So when I hammer this on, I'm trying to get to about 250 foot-pounds. And every time I do it, I'm turning the hub assembly just so everything kind of settles and it locks itself on. And I can feel it's getting kind of really resistive. So yeah, I'm probably hitting that 250 foot-pounds of torque. So now that I've tightened it all the way on, we're going to back it off. See, it's backed off now. I can move it by hand. And what I did was that set the bearings. Now that they're set, I'll bring this up and it should be somewhere about 50 foot-pounds. But what I do is I kind of go by what it feels like. So, let's get a little bit more. Okay. And then the next thing I'll do is I'll make sure this nut lines up with the keyway. So if you look inside here, you can see the keyway on the axle and the keyway on the nut. So what I want to do is I want to line those up. So I'm going to back this up just slightly. until that lines up like so. I'm going to check to make sure that that didn't give it any play. And now I can take my key stock and run that down inside. So now you can see that key stock is in there. Now this nut cannot turn, cannot back off. Once I got that in, I can take my retainer and I'll stick my retainer on, and that's going to keep that key stock from popping out. Now that whole assembly's together and it spins somewhat nice. Now before I put the axle in, I want to adjust the brakes. I want to adjust the brakes before the axle goes in so that I'm not turning the axle along with everything else, and I just want to feel the drag of the brakes. So I can actually hear it just barely touching. So what I'm going to do is on the back side of the backing plate, there's an inspection hole. So you can see back on this backing plate, it has an inspection hole right here. And that's where I can get to that star adjuster to adjust it. In order to get back there, they make special tools. This is called a brake spoon, and it has a bend in it. It kind of looks like a common screwdriver. And it's meant to slide in there, like so. And then now I can get to that star adjuster. And basically, I'm going to turn that star adjuster and turn the drum every time I make an adjustment. So you can hear the clicks. So I usually do about 3 to 5 clicks and then check. And I can see there, I have a good amount of resistance on there. It still turns, like so. I can hear it dragging, so I have about the right amount. Okay? And that's how you adjust the brakes. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put our axle back together. So before the axle goes on, you want to have a gasket that's going to go back on here. If you don't have a gasket, sometimes you can use RTV. Take RTV and run a bead of RTV all the way around. In this case, I have a gasket. So when I stick my axle in, I want to make sure I run that gasket on there. I'm going to take the axle, run it inside, and it's going to slide into the carrier. Now, it has teeth that it needs to slide into on the carrier, and when it sits inside the axle, the farther I go down, the more it's going to start dropping. So I'm going to have to pick it up from one side. So you see how it locks into place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it like that, pull back to lift that end to slide it into place, and then I just turn it around and slide onto the teeth. Now I can take my gasket, line the holes up before I push it all the way on, and to keep the gasket from moving around, I'm going to start a bolt on each side, like so. Now I can push that all the way on. I'll start all my bolts, and then I'll zip them up and torque them down to specification. Okay, so we're recording. Oh. Okay, so what we're gonna do is I'm gonna torque it down. So I have my torque wrench, and I will set my torque in there. And on this one is 85 foot-pounds, like so. And then I can put it on here. Now, when I go to torque it, it's going to try turning the whole wheel. So I brought a pry bar, and the pry bar is there to help keep this from moving. So I'll just get it set up where I can send that. Okay. Alright, so now that we have it torqued, we can go ahead and we can put the wheel back on. So remember, this is a dually. One of them cones out, the other one cones in. So the first one to go on is going to cone to the outside. And I'm going to pay specific attention where I put that valve stem. So on the inside tire, I want the valve stem straight up. And on the outside tire, I'm going to put the valve stem straight down. So they're opposite of each other. First one, I got the valve stem to the up 12 o'clock position. Here's my second tire. You can see that the outside tire is dished inward, and my valve stem right now is at the top. So I want to switch that to the 6 o'clock position, like so. Put it on. Now I make sure that this hole on the outside tire lines up with my valve stem so that I actually can access it. I don't want to block it. Now that I got that on, I can take my hubcap, line my hubcap up, take my nuts. I'll start the bottom nuts first, and then when I go to do the top, I can push the top of the tire in, and then I can get my top nuts started. I'll try to run them in as far as I can by hand, so it doesn't allow the tire to drop back down. Like so. So now all I got to do is put the rest of my light nuts on. Okay, so now I'll go get the impact and we'll tighten these up. So now that I got them tightened up, I'm not going to put the cap on until I got it back on the ground and we torque it. So we're going to go ahead and lower the back of this truck. Make sure I get my tools and stuff out of the way. Okay. So one thing I want to show you guys before we put it on the ground and torque the wheels is, you remember we took the axle out, and when we took the axle out, some of the fluid came out. So we're going to have to put that fluid back in, and that goes in at the rear end. So here at the rear differential, we're going to open up that fill plug, and we're going to put gear oil inside of it until it comes up to the bottom of that hole, and that will keep, that's the proper height for gear oil. Now there's a trick I do before I end up taking the truck off the lift. After I put oil in there, I lift one side of the truck so all the fluid goes one way, and then I lift the other side of the truck so all the fluid goes the other way, so it drops down into the hub assembly. So I know that the hub assembly bearings have been soaked in oil, and I know for sure it has because I forced all the oil that way. So that's one of the things you would probably want to do before you actually take the truck off of the lift. Okay, so I've shown you how to disassemble or inspect the rear brakes, remove the drum, resurface the drum, clean and adjust the rear end, and also don't forget about, we had to fill up that rear end fluid because we lost it when we took the axle out. The next thing, if this was the only thing we were doing, we would take it out, go on a test drive, do a couple panic stops to make sure that we don't have any noises or anything like that. Everything works like it's supposed to. We still have the front brakes that we're going to be doing tomorrow, so it's still on the rack. That's why we didn't take it for a test drive. So I'll see you then.